On the agenda, first item, any declarations of pecuniary interest?
Regrettably, none.
No.
Being done. Item 2, adoption of the previous minutes. Do I have a motion to previous minutes? Bernard, second.
I have a correction, a minor correction. Is this appropriate now, or do you want?
When would you like to do that, Vicky? As part of the ongoing business or right now?
If we could do it at this point, that would be appreciated.
It's very, very minor. The spelling on the last page, the last motion, the spelling of my name is incorrect as the seconder. I think I was the seconder there.
My apologies for that. I'll get that corrected immediately. Thank you.
Thank you.
Names are always the worst thing for a spell check.
And I'd be happy to move the motion to.
Okay, then Bernard and Lee, will you still second? Thank you. Lee, second. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Item 3, business arising from previous minutes. Item A, discussion of infrastructure improvement priorities.
Yeah. So I've got prepared 2 documents for tonight's meeting. I'm going to share my screen.
Thank you.
The first one, there's about 43 projects on the go right now, and I sort of filtered through which ones might be of interest for ATAC, and I came up with 14.
Okay.
And I thought I would just go through each one at a time and just give a brief explanation on the scope of the project and sort of where it sits right now.
Okay.
Okay, so that sounds reasonable.
Mm-hmm.
So the first project is just a general sidewalk replacement. This is more if there's a hazard with the sidewalk, just replacing small sections, and it's in the tender phase right now. March 1st, it'll be tendered out. It's February 28th. It's on the consent agenda. Accessibility improvements, it's tendered at the exact same time. And again, it's more adding ramps, tactile warning plates at various locations at the city. So the third project is the Trails, Bike, and Pedestrian Master Plan implementation. Right now, the sections that are allotted for this line item in the budget is Martin Street, Delamere to William, and Walnut Street, Railway to Dufferin. And it's in the design phase right now. Project 4, I've sort of lumped these 2 together because they will likely
Ask a question, Nick.
Yes.
Where is Martin Street? Is that by the golf course?
Yes. So it's between Delamere and William, the east end of the road.
Is that just that little short stretch that connects the 2?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
It's just a section where it's highly pedestrian traffic, but no sidewalk. So for number 4, missing sidewalks on collector and arterial roads, Cambria Street, John to St. Vincent, McCarthy Road, Mornington to the east. There's a townhouse complex there that doesn't have sidewalk access. John Street, Cambria to Center. This is on the east side of the road, try to get to the hospital to TJ Dolan. Number 5 is bridge improvements, the Tom Patterson pedestrian bridge. It's currently under repair right now, so there's some structural work being done, as well as replacing the timber decking. And also there's the the slope of the bridge is fairly steep, and it's not possible to change that with the current configuration. So there's some work done to add more of a anti-slip coating to the top. It should help things. So yeah, that's under construction, should be done March 15th. Bridge improvements, this is every 2 years, there's inspections done of all the city bridges, and there's some repairs identified by an engineering firm. This is more of this. It's going to be more design work right now. Number 7, pedestrian crossing improvements. There is a line item in the budget to do a pedestrian crossing on Romeo Street. It was initially recommended for Romeo at Devon, but because of sightlines, we've proposed it 1 block south, just because there's the hill there. So if you move it up, it's a little better sightline for vehicles and pedestrians as they're crossing. And that's in the design phase. And when asphalt resurfacing work was done there, some conduit was installed, so it proactive for that.
Okay.
Number 8 is the downtown intersection improvements. And this is also in the design phase. So this line item includes Ontario Church and St. Andrew Street intersection, Ontario and Erie Street intersection, Downey and George with a pedestrian crossing overhead, and Waterloo in Ontario. This one is pending. There was a study done, and the recommendations, there wasn't a lot of change, but quite a bit of work for not as a great deal of benefit. So this one is kind of pending at this time. Number 9 is Huron Street, John to Mornington, and this is currently being tendered with construction starting in the spring. Argyle Street, St. David to Cambria is currently tendered and construction starting in the spring. Mackenzie Street, St. David to Cambria tender phase right now. Ontario Street resurfacing, which is Gordon to the city limits. This is pending provincial funding. So can't say if it's going to go ahead or not right now, but that's, if we get the funding, that's where the funds will be spent. Number 13 is McCarthy Road West extension from Orr to Olone. This is there's quite a few studies and design work that needs to take place here, but it's basically trying to connect Olone to McCarthy, and that arterial collector avenue will be finished. And number 14 is asphalt resurfacing, Lorne Ave, from Romeo Street to Home Street, and that's in the design phase right now.
Nick, could you take a quick second to just put those various phases in order? Does tender come before design, or do we design and then tender a design?
Yeah, so it goes design first. So you know, staff or consultants, depending on the situation, finish the plans and specifications for what we want. And then it goes to tender phase, which is presenting the project to potential contractors. And then they provide a price. That's the definition of the tender phase. And then construction would be following tender phase, assuming it's approved by council.
Thank you.
I assume the study comes first, correct?
Yes, yes, yeah. Study before design. So
Establish a need before. doing
yeah,
work.
need and a high level what we want to do, and then you go into more of a detailed design on, you know, this is the concept, like the downtown work, the concept has been completed, and now it's, you know, this is kind of what we want to do, but it's actually, okay, what radiuses of the curbs are we going to use? How are we going to grade it? Where do we need catch basins? Where do we have to relocate conduits and street lights, things like that?
Question, Nick, number 13, is that a road connection or is that just a sidewalk connection?
This is just actually asphalt resurfacing. So it's milling the existing road, you know.
No, it was number 13, Nick.
Number
Oh,
13.
13, sorry. 13, this is, yeah, a new road. We have to create an intersection at Mccarthy and Olome. So the road stops right now at Orr. It's a little more complicated than that. There's some development and some land purchasing and flooding zones and things like that. So it's, if it happened this year, it would be a good thing if it did happen this year, but I would say it would likely won't.
And Nick, remind me, that will include a will it include a continuation of the bike lanes or the potential of separating them out? I can't remember which of the two.
Yeah, it would be a bike lane for sure. Two bike lanes one on either side, and then sidewalk. There's 2 sidewalks on both sides there, like continuing that. There's some traffic study work right now. So in the 2010, maybe, there was a study done and it recommended a potential roundabout at that intersection. So it's been a few years, so we're revisiting, make sure is that the appropriate design for that intersection. But yeah, there's quite a bit of work to be done there before we get to construction.
But it certainly would be, or sorry, I was going to say it's a really nice connection though, like along almost the entire north end of the city will have cycling infrastructure and pedestrian infrastructure. So that'll be really a nice long stretch.
I think it would also help alleviate some of the concerns on Foreman, Fraser, because people who are traveling greater distances that may want to go faster are going to use that and then go down to Quinlan.
But when I showed up in Stratford, I went out to the Rotary complex and said, oh, well, I'll just go down to the Sobeys, just go out here. Oh, I found myself into the Christie Turney side streets. And yeah, so I'm sure there's a few of that going on as well.
Going through the Glastonbury, Somerset area is even more confusing, but okay.
Sorry, this is all fairly new to me, but I just want to pick up on what you said about timing. So these are 2022 projects, but what I heard you say is they're not necessarily all going to get implemented in 22. Is that correct?
Yeah, that happens from time to time. There's always things that can pop up during design phase, or say some project costs more than we anticipated, and maybe we have to bump up one project to fund it, or the design things can drag on if it
yeah, I'm just trying to is the intent though that assuming a perfect world these are all going to get implemented this year?
Yeah, that would be
okay.
Idea. These are all line items from the approved capital budget.
Okay, thank you. I just wanted to clarify.
There's another 100 or another 99 line items under the capital budget, but these are more of the ones that would be applicable to this committee.
Okay, thank you.
On another item, Nick, number 8, the downtown intersection improvements, A and B, those are harrowing intersections for pedestrians. Is the objective for the design to improve safety for pedestrians?
Yeah, there's a few various safety improvements there, but shortening the distance between crossings, like the one for example, Ontario and Church is
You cover a lot of asphalt there when you cross.
So it would shorten that distance, sort of confine the traffic a little bit, and there's some line painting work to realign lanes. I believe on our website, there's a presentation from that study that was done, and it shows conceptual design. It might be of value to look at.
Okay.
Thanks, Nick. I was just going to say, maybe we could send that study around to everybody so they could have a look at the that downtown study, because I think there was a PDF report version that might be of interest to people because it has a number of different concepts in it.
And I was going to say that the interesting part about that one is that church in Huron Street area, there was a solution done in 1967 that is still valid and very close to what's going to be done. So it's interesting that as long as I've been alive, there's been flagged issues on that. One of the things I like about that, if you look at the perspective, is that right now you have that long curve where cars just like boot along really, really quickly, and so the redesign will actually slow traffic down as well. Like it shortens the pedestrian crossings, but it also designs in a way to actually slow that traffic down, which is really helpful for the kids.
That one, it's a little, the design, the concepts are great. I like them. The constructability, like making sure, okay, we have the Huron Street project taking place this summer, which is, you know, one or two blocks from that intersection. And then, you know, the theater has been closed for how long? And then we're going to work on the intersection of Downey and George right out front of the Avon. So it's like trying to be a project manager and manage those that you get the work done, and also appease the residents or
people will be complaining. The unfortunate thing is that I think there was 1 year, isn't it, we did something on Romeo and something on another street, and people were outraged. 2 bridge projects that there were 2 were going on at the same time to inconvenience them. So, you know, spread the word that these are good things, and to stop giving Nick a hard time.
You can do it though. It's going to be great once it's all done. You know,
Absolutely.
Residents and people visiting for theater are going to be happy with some of these improvements for sure. I had a question about one project sort of in the back of my mind that I would really love to see done is Duro Street. Is there any update on when that might be coming forward for design or for tender?
Yeah, so it's we looked at trying to do it this year, and the cost is a lot more than it would have to be something that would be based. So 200,000 is allotted for that. What would be that applicable line item, and it would have to be phased in over. With that amount would probably be 4 years. So if that we could touch on that on the next update on the traffic master plan. I think that would be something good to voice for this committee, but that's sort of on the second thing on the agenda. So
that would be great. Thank you. Yeah, and if there's any active transportation funding from upper levels of government, that would probably be a really great project to apply for that type of funding for, since I think we've already have some of the design work done, right?
yeah, we have some survey work done. Since we knew it wasn't going to be fit into the budget this year, we've tried to focus on these other 43 items. So it will, the information's still there, but it's not on the top pile of the desk right now.
Great, thank you.
Any other questions? Any other questions? Okay. You said you had 2
Yes.
packages there, Nick.
Okay. So everybody's no questions for that one? Okay. Dual screens here is getting me all Okay, there we go. Is that looking right? So, okay. One of the requests from the last meeting was an update on the transportation master plan. So I thought I'd put a slideshow together, not just to update on where we are right now, but sort of how we got there and next steps. So what is a master plan? A master plan represents a comprehensive vision of the infrastructure plan for Stratford and takes into consideration planning capacity, state of repair and compliance, in addition to social, environmental, financial, and long-term maintenance factors. Okay. So what are the current master plans the city has related to transportation? So there's two main ones. The master transportation plan, which was completed in 2010, and then also the bike and pedestrian master plan, which was created in 2014. And both of these master plans are due for an update. So it's pretty common practice. You implement a plan, a best attempt, and then you revisit it as things change or as you've knocked off projects or the city grows in a different way, and you reevaluate rather than, okay, this was the plan. So that's where we're at. So what's proposed? This is a little snapshot from Kathy's motion. That the bike and pedestrian master plan be updated and included with the integrated transportation master plan, and consideration be given to having a section related to zero vision. So this was in 2020 of September. So the major considerations and objectives: integrate all aspects of vehicle and active transportation modes with a focus on safety, capitalizing on major city building opportunities, example, the Cooper Block, build on recent active transportation successes, build on the downtown traffic study, which we talked about in my last presentation, assess the impacts of previous annexations, and consider the most recent provincial highway planning in the area. So this is an update on what actions the city taken to date on this master plan. So in February 2021, council approved the capital budget to include an updated transportation master plan. September 23rd, the request for proposal document was prepared and released by city staff. So this is a document outlining what we want in our master plan. October 7th, even though it says 7th, it should say 7th, 2021, 8 proposals were submitted for review. And then in November 2021, proposals were evaluated by 5 committee members. And following the review of those, the successful consultant was IBI Group, and they've been retained for the transportation master plan update. Okay. So how does this impact ATAC? Within the request for proposal, the Active Transportation Advisory Committee and Cycle Stratford were identified as key stakeholders. So what that means is that you have a little more pull when it comes to what is going to be implemented or what the priorities are in the master plan. So 2 meetings are proposed to engage, inform, consult, and involve key stakeholders such as ATAC and Cycle Stratford. The first one is proposed for late March 2022 in a virtual format. And then the second one will be early December 2022. And right now it's proposed in person, but that's tentative. So this is a rough project schedule for the update for this master plan. So the red line is where we are right now. And these 2 arrows is consultation with key stakeholders, such as ATAC. So where are we right now? The consultant is finalizing the transportation master plan webpage content. So there'll be something on the website. It provides maps and information on how to get involved, how to influence change in the master plan. And then they're also preparing a notice of commencement and public consultation. And this is what will be sent to ATAC. And that's it. That was just a quick update. If anybody has any questions, it wasn't clear. But one thing I want to touch on is that this plan is to integrate, instead of having two plans, the transportation master plan and the bike and pedestrian master plan and the transit plan, it's to be integrated into one so that they're working together. You're not, this plan has more priority than this plan, but it's one plan and they're all integrated and redoing this road has to be bigger. Okay, well, this road has to be bigger, but also needs bike lanes. So it's sort of holistic approach.
Okay, are there any questions?
Do you know when you expect to settle on a date for March?
I'll leave that for the consultant, but it says end of March is what they're
Okay.
talking about. And I would, think about what the committee, you could think about. There's lots of things that we want, but it maybe come up with a list of priorities or things like Duro Street. Is that it's nice to have everything, but if you really can hone in on prioritizing on what you want, but
Or guidelines or frameworks for choosing?
yeah, it would be nice to help guide them. But
Don has a question.
I think Nick may have answered it in part. I was just going to ask if it would make sense for us to try and get our act together before we have that session with the committees, whenever that happens in March or later. We've all probably got ideas about things that we think should be considered at least and perhaps become part of the master plan. I think everybody knows that one of my hot buttons is speed limits in the city. Another one would be the ongoing presence of very large vehicles in the downtown core, specifically 18-wheelers going through the middle of the city. Everybody's got pet ideas like that. Would it make sense for us to maybe have a separate meeting, do something so that we're coordinated and we can use Nick's time most effectively when we get to that meeting in March?
I guess my question then, as part of Don's, is Nick, do you foresee us having some sort of document before the consultation so we have a chance to sort of put intelligent questions together rather than sort of surprise questions?
Yeah, good point.
Kathy, maybe you might. I know that there's going to be an invitation. It's going to make recommendations, and the website will be on there, like an information page on our website. I think that the reason for two consultations is, maybe the first one is a little more introductory. This is what we've come up with, and you can comment on it and provide information. And then there'll be a second one, but that's.
So I had a couple points to make. One is, I think would be really great if we took the March ATAC meeting and put on the agenda to have Sarah, I don't know if those of you have been on here long, but Sarah Merkel she leads some really great visioning style exercises around these issues that she's led us in the past. Some of the projects that we've come up with that we've actually made recommendations on have been built on those. So I'm wondering whether we can just dedicate the entire meeting to having Sarah lead us through the things that we might need to do in anticipation of the consultation, because the one thing about master planning is also broad principles, right? So it's not just saying, you know, this is the project you have to do. It's also building broad principles. Like if we're going to be looking at infrastructure, like cycling infrastructure, for example, is the emphasis going to be on filling gaps? Are we going to, is the principle that we're going to create a ring and spoke system? Are we going to emphasize areas of the city that haven't had enough attention around safe pedestrian and cycling infrastructure? Those sort of broader things that Sarah's really quite good at walking through. So I would suggest we actually just say, put everything else aside for the next meeting and focus on what we may want to recommend, or when we're participating, some broad principles that we can all agree on. The other thing is the 40-kilometer lowering the speed limit on all residential, or what we call local roads, has already been recommended by council and has been referred to staff. So that's something that is in the works. So when that report is ready to come to council for consideration, it would be, I think, interesting to have someone from ATAC look at it and provide feedback. We have had ATAC as a delegation to council or to Infrastructure, Transportation and Safety Committee on some of these issues, so that put it in the back of your mind. I know, Don, you're very interested in speed limits, so that's a good one. And Don, I recently had a response from the Ministry of Transportation on big trucks on Ontario Street, Erie Street, and Huron Street. If you'd like me to take a minute to pull it up and tell you what the ministry has basically flat out told us about it, I'm happy to do so. And it's the same it always is. The long and they really are. I'll see if I can find it, but it's like a too bad, so sad we move goods, and they're provincial highways. It's frustrating, and we've asked numerous times, and the response is always the same. So until those roads are no longer provincial highways, council doesn't have a whole lot of latitude. We can change the speed limits on them, but I will circulate the email with the response from the ministry. It's shockingly blunt in its assessment about big trucks on provincial highways. Unless, Nick, you've heard anything different, but a resident asked me for direct access to who's responsible, and staff gave me the contact information at the ministry, and the ministry's response was blunt.
I really like the idea of a session in which we all get our act together. If you need a motion to dedicate that meeting along the lines that Kathy has suggested, I would be pleased to make that motion.
Can we make sure that that meeting happens before the consultation session?
Yes.
Well, what we can do is the ATAC, we have a standing meeting. If that standing meeting happens to not be before the other, we can, maybe Vicky, you can circulate that we will have the ATAC meeting the week before, same time slot, something like that. As long as that is amenable to everybody else.
I think we're right. We need to have our own meeting before we get the consultation. So however that works is probably the best directive.
I have a question for you, Kathy.
Hang on, Vicky was going to respond to those comments
Vicky,
first.
Yeah.
So we don't need a motion in regards to what Don asked. I don't think we need a motion. We can just list it as the item on the agenda, and everybody knows that that's our focus for the meeting. When we speak about moving the ATAC meeting, I think we'll wait until Nick has a date for that consultation, and then I'll send an email out kind of checking where everybody's at and if that's still going to work to move that, if that's going to work. So, but I'll definitely make note that that is the general opinion of the committee, is to move the date if need be.
Thank you, Vicky. Okay, John.
I had a question for you, Kathy, with regards to the truck routes. The bypass routes around the city? My understanding is that they're voluntary.
The bypasses are absolutely voluntary. We can do road restrictions on Nick. You can, on our roads, the trucks can't go on them unless they're actually delivering, but the provincial highways, they're the ones that, that we don't have, we can't limit trucks on those from what the response is from the ministry.
So other communities suffer the same fate with regards to bypasses as well.
Mhm. They most certainly do.
Okay, I'd be curious to see how other municipalities have circumvented this problem.
They haven't. I can probably guarantee you that if it's a provincial highway and it's part of the Connecting Links program, most municipalities are just happy that the ministry picks up 90% of the cost of actually fixing those roads and biting the hand that feeds. I don't know if Nick, am I wrong? I mean, I'm being a little blunter than maybe staff would, but what people don't realize is all that work on Ontario Street, all that work on Huron Street, all that work that got done on Erie Street, 90% of the tab-ish came from the province, specifically because they own those roads. And they own what happens on those roads. All of that stuff that happened was it Mitchell, got that nice new road going through it. It was a connecting link. It would be great if a bunch of municipalities got together and pushed back. I just haven't seen any try because of that funding piece, especially rural communities.
And that means we can't control the speed limit on.
We can actually ask what we said so when this came up on Huron Street, and Jody can remind me as well, when we asked about, remember Huron Street with the school and Huntington and the crossing and all that, they are happy to consider pedestrian crossings. They're happy to consider speed limit changes. So that's why we can get 40s. They will not entertain things like not allowing trucks. And then that was at that time, even with a school crossing. And then more recently last year, I had a citizen about the patios and trucks going by and everything else. And when the response came back was pretty clear. So we can request a decrease in speed limits. They can say no, but we can request it. It's unfortunate, right? And and I had this when Ed was the director. I said to him, let's be ready to design better streets when the eventual bypass happens, like that magical unicorn. Eventually the province is going to bypass. Yeah, I know it's a unicorn. It's been like, I don't know. I think it's still, I don't know what stage it's at, but eventually they will actually bypass Stratford, and then we will assume ownership of like Ontario Street and Erie and some of those, and then we can do whatever we want with them. But who knows if that'll ever happen.
Yeah, it's been proposed since like 80s.
Yeah, longer, even longer. I think it's been a long time. And that was all that whole Shakespeare, bypassing Shakespeare, taking up farmland, all of that pushback, right? But it's supposed to go out Lorne Avenue, right? Which is why we keep deferring doing anything major on Lorne Avenue, because we keep thinking the province is at some point going to do something big.
Well, that could be, the cynic says that that's the way to get it done, is we do something on Lorne, and then the ministry comes along 2 years later and rips it all up to do their own thing.
Oh yeah, Murphy's Law. Yeah, I do wish there was something different about those highways, the provincial highways. I had hope, but after 7 years of asking the same question, I think let's do as much as we can on the roads that we can. I'm not exactly sure how much energy we can expend on changing the province's mind.
We do the European thing. We make. I like the idea of the changing the speed limits on the semi-residential streets and encourage them to go around, because it's a 50/60 zone to go on the bypass, and you go through town and it's 40 and there's all the traffic lights.
Yeah.
We can hope.
We can hope.
Any other questions on this topic? Pat?
Yes, sorry, Nick. Just from a process perspective, since I'm here on behalf of Cycle Stratford, will you reach out to us separately then?
Yeah, the consultant who is IBI is was the successful consultant for this master plan, and part of their component is public consultation with the
Okay,
public and key stakeholders. So they will reach out directly to you.
okay, so I'll just make the board aware of that it will be coming?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Any other input? Okay. Thank you, Nick, for the presentations. Okay, moving on, item 4, any new business to discuss? Jody.
Yeah, sorry. I just saw something today, which I'll probably just send to Vicky and send around to everybody, but it's, there's some webinars for active transportation funding that's coming from the federal level. And I guess they're holding webinars to find out how different groups and different municipalities and so on will be able to access this money. So what I was thinking was if somebody from this group wanted to join one of those webinars to find out about that would be great. But I'll send that through to Vicky and then she'll send it around to the group.
Okay, thank you. Maybe we'll take 2 seconds for the few people who weren't in last month's meeting to just do a 5-second who you are, how you come to the committee, and what your focus is. I know, Pat, you weren't able to be here last time.
Yeah. Yeah, my name is Pat Rainey and I'm here representing Cycle Stratford. I'm a board member on Cycle Stratford, relatively new to the club. But my background is in project management, marketing, strategic planning, a variety of different things. And I'm looking forward to learning lots, and I'm taking over from Wayne, which I know is very big shoes to fill.
Thank you. And Felicity. Oh, sorry, Felicity, on your mute.
I'm muted.
There we
My
go.
name is Felicity Sutcliffe, and I'm here because I'm representing the Energy and Environment Committee. And I'm very new to that committee, just started on that committee this year. And I'm a member of Cycle Stratford, so I have connections with that group for a long time. So I'm big on biking. So I'm interested in walking and biking around town and how to make it better for all of us that do.
Thank you. And Jody, just a brief reintroduction to yourself.
Hi, everybody. Jody Burback, former member of Cycle Stratford, board member and city councillor, and definitely interested in all things pedestrian and cycling and just making it safer. So yeah, I love being part of this group, and I'm excited because this is entering my 4th year on the group, and I see things on the list that are getting done that we've been talking about the last 3 years, which makes me very happy. So progress is slow, but it is progress and it's happening and I'm excited. So, and I've ridden, like I do a lot of biking and I've ridden every last bike lane and I'm looking forward to more infrastructure for safe cycling, for sure.
Any other new business? Okay, so barring any changes that come up as a result of IBI's requested consultation, the next meeting is on March 23rd at 7 p.m. And now time for adjournment. Do I have a motion for adjournment? Lee, and second Jody. All in favor? Thank you all very much for your time. Good evening.
Thank you.
Hey, bye.
Nice.
Bye.
Thanks.
Good night.